Thank you all for coming. My name is Emily Dugan. I am the Project and Administration Coordinator with Commute Options. Today for this webinar, we're going to be talking about centering Black and Brown experiences and talking about walking while Black and Brown, and also celebrating Ruby Bridges and giving some information about Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day. Great. Here's our agenda today. First, I'll just start with a quick introduction of those who will be speaking. We'll talk about Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day. Then Ashton Simpson, the Executive Director with Oregon Walks, will take it over and talk about his experience and his work with Oregon Walks. And then we'll go to a Q&A and finally share out some resources and contact information. Great. I want to introduce our speaker real quick. It's Ashton Simpson with Oregon Walks. He's the Executive Director. Just briefly introducing, he's going to talk more about himself in a few minutes here. First, I wanted to talk about Ruby Bridges. I think a lot of us are already familiar with Ruby Bridges and her background, but I just wanted to go over a little bit about her and the importance of Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day. So we know that Ruby Bridges was the first Black student to desegregate schools in New Orleans. That occurred on November 14th in 1960. She was only 6 years old at the time. She walked to school through an angry mob of white parents who didn't want her at the school. I learned everyone pulled their kids out. And so she actually attended the school by herself for almost a year with just one teacher privately tutoring her essentially. But today she's heralded as one of the most important figures of that era and it continues to do a lot of work for civil rights and equity and justice. Then we go to Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day. This was started in 2018 by a group of fifth graders in San Mateo County. The students wanted to commemorate Ruby's bravery. They had learned about her, they were very interested. They wanted to do something to remember this. So they went to their school board and asked about organizing a walk to school day, and the San Mateo County School Board said, absolutely yes, we're going to do this. So now it is a national push to try to get as many schools involved as possible to commemorate Ruby's bravery and walking to school and desegregating schools in New Orleans. This year it's going to be held on Wednesday, November 17th. So mark your calendars. You'll be hearing more about ways you can get involved in some incentives very soon. And this is a day to acknowledge the real ongoing challenges for the Black and Brown community members. And it's also a way to celebrate diversity while encouraging anti-racist actions and awareness, which is something that we can all continue to learn and continue to promote with our youth and get them learning about as well. And this will be shared out at the end as well too, but you can go to OregonSafeRoutes.org/Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day, RBWTSD, and get more information and learn how to register your events. Great. And now I'm going to turn it over to Lindsay with the Street Trust to talk about incentives and activities.
Hey, I'm Lindsay Huber, she, her, with the Street Trust, and we've been working on getting special incentives ordered for this event. So right now we are looking at having a bookmark, which you can see the picture in the right-hand side of this page with the photo of Ruby and then some information about her, along with the sticker, which is the design that is on the left-hand side. So those will be coming to our usual order form page, which we will be linking on the Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day page that we linked in the chat. Incentive ordering should open probably next week or very shortly thereafter. Along with these, we will also have some of our standard walk and roll incentives. So if you've ordered previously, you've already seen them, but that's usually pencils, walk and roll stickers and reflective stickers with a couple different designs. We've got shoelaces that are reflective, all sorts of fun things. So just keep an eye on the Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day event page and get your orders in soon.
And then I just wanted to preview the Ruby Bridges and Be Safe, Be Seen bingo here. This will be live soon. We're still doing a few tweaks, but look out for that on the Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day page. And now I'm going to turn it over to Ashton Simpson. Thank you so much, Ashton.
Thank you, Emily. Thank you all for coming out this morning. My name is Ashton Simpson. I use he, him pronouns, the executive director at Oregon Walks. And I'm really here. I really love this topic because when I was coming up, we didn't have safe routes to school. So my experience with getting to school, and I'll dive in a bit about that, is really different because it was coming from the South and coming from Houston. So growing up, we knew a lot about Ruby Bridges. My parents and grandparents talked about her often, about the struggles she had to go through, but also their own struggles. Ruby Bridges gets acknowledged, but there's a lot of stories that don't get heard. And I really think about my grandmother when I say that, because she grew up, she didn't get the opportunities that we all have had today. I think she got no more than a 6th grade education because they just wouldn't allow her into the schools. So she really was a key about talking about and getting my education. So I'm here because of her. So I always give my thanks and praises to my grandparents and my folks that raised me. So a little bit about Oregon Walks. We are 30 years old this year. We began as the Willamette Pedestrian Coalition. In 2008, we made the switch over to Oregon Walks. And our whole objective is making sure we protect everybody's right to roam, meaning, whether it's through the right of way or through nature trails or anything like that, making sure folks have access to connectivity to get to the places they need to be to make their lives complete. And that's whether they are walking, using a mobility device, or cycling. Next slide, please. So a bit about me. So I grew up in Houston, Texas, and I smile about this because that picture at the top right, that's me in the 3rd grade, and my son is in the 3rd grade now. So he swears up and down that we're twins now. But this is just a brief look at what my route looked like when I walked to school. So if you see at the top of that box there on the map, there's Shadydale Elementary. Those were my formative years. And, something very special about that school, myself, my younger brother, and my mom, we all had basically the same 1st through 5th grade teachers. And so it was really hard to if you got in trouble, people knew, and they knew who to talk to. They knew to call your mom or your grandmother. But, the address down at the bottom is my grandmother's home. And the reason I brought this picture up and this map is because I'm going to talk a little bit about it in later slides, but we started a program here at Oregon Walks. We're rolling that out next year called Walking School Bus / Corner Greeters. And when I walked to school, we always had corner greeters. And along that route that is highlighted in red, there was Miss Walker at the end of the street, right where Shadydale is. About midway, there was Miss Vernon. There was Miss Mickey halfway to my grandmother's house. So we always had eyes on us as kids moving to school. So, despite not knowing what a safe route to school was, there were adults already providing that for us as we moved to and from school. Now, as I, grew a little older down to the left, it switched. So I did not go to that school, but I do want to talk about the experiences of getting to and from middle school and high school, with the threats that we faced in our community. So walking to school, especially going into high school, was a bit, and middle school really was really challenging, considering a lot of the environmental factors that played into making things not safe. There were a lot of folks on the streets that were involved in guns and gang violence. There were a lot of folks who were dealing with and experiencing addiction issues that we had to navigate through walking to school. And sometimes, you literally saw people using drugs on your route to school. You saw folks being beat up and jumped. It was, you had to learn how to survive. And that's something that, looking back now, I didn't realize how unsafe things were. It was kind of like, well, this is the norm. And, for me, making sure that we look out for those types of bullying and hate incidents, especially nowadays, for our students of color, has been a top priority for Oregon Walks. We know that given what's happened over the past year and a half with this pandemic, our kiddos are facing a lot of pressures, from social anxiety to depression. The last thing they need is to be struck by a vehicle trying to get back to school and get back into a routine, or face hate and bullying incidents as they try to reacclimate back into an educational setting. So I say all that to say, I made it here, but there was a lot of hurdles that I should not have had to deal with in trying to attain an education. Next slide. So Oregon Walks, this is back in 2017. This is prior to me coming on board, but we partnered with Portland Public Schools and PBOT to promote healthy travel options to school. And this here is a shot of students trying to get to Scott Elementary on Prescott right before you get to Cully. And we worked with parents and educators to create safe walking routes. Obviously, this is Portland. There's a lot of places that are still not paved. I just walked on that road last weekend and it still looks the same. So if we get a good bit of rain, kids will still have to slog through those types of puddles. But the big piece around this is I think about the Black and brown students that I have served in East County, and particularly right at the jurisdictional line at 162nd and Stark during my time at the Rosewood Initiative. During that time, I worked with residents at the local apartment complexes to make sure their students got to school safely, because in Centennial, they have, like a lot of school districts, have a rule around not providing buses within a certain radius within the school. So I think theirs was like within a half mile to a mile. There's a lot of students that lived along 162nd that did not have access to a school bus and in very, very poor conditions during inclement weather. It's almost impossible to see. We've gone on tours with those students. We've done walking school buses with those students. And one of the big takeaways from all of that is a lot of students have high absentee rates, and that's just because they don't have a way to get to school. And that means sidewalks, crossings, lighting, proper lighting. And when you talk about Main and 162nd, this is a road that goes one lane each direction, but there's not even a shoulder for the kids to move along on at least on a goat path or anything like that. So it is a very, very scary situation, especially when you consider a lot of dump trucks and construction trucks are moving through that area, passing by. The 4 schools there in that area are Patrick Lynch, Alder Elementary, Park Lane, and Oliver. These are the issues that are faced out here, not just in that location, but really East County wide. And to put the big stamp on it and to stamp it home, a lot of diversity exists east of 82nd, and our current census data shows that, it reflects that. But if you layer on top a lot of the other issues around educational attainment, jobs, access to parks, there's so many gaps that exist where all the people of color live. And we have to start to close those gaps. And we have to be strategic, but we also have to be intentional. We have to let folks know. So, working with those parents and those students to make sure that they had safe routes to school was key. But then the pandemic happened. A lot of kids shifted over to online learning. And right now, the conditions are still the same. Nothing's changed. So I'm hoping that kids are getting to school now, and I will follow up with them. Next slide, please. So the big piece around the work that was done with PPS and PBOT back in 2017 was to really, again, overcome a lot of the cultural barriers to walking and biking to school. Particularly in that area, as you saw, they could get there, but there was barriers in terms of unpaved roads, proper drainage. These are things that, I'm an engineer, with my background. And so, I think about those things and barriers and making sure folks can get to school, but they're often looked at and people don't really think it plays its part or is impacting how folks move, but it really does. If I walk out my house and I see, 18 inches of water, I'm not gonna walk out. I'm just gonna stay home. And that's something that we have to improve. For me, is really around infrastructure, especially where it doesn't exist in communities. Again, the issues at the 4 schools I named are not isolated. They are just a symptom of a systematic problem that we have within East County. And, that's not to say that our government agencies are not doing the work to remedy some of those solutions, but we all know that with budgets, with money, things with the government kind of move really slow, but we have to, from Oregon Walk standpoint, the push is urgency in terms of infrastructure, because we know the folks that really benefit that are our most vulnerable populations, and kids being one of them. We have to make sure that connectivity exists for them. Next slide. So this year, well, next year really, but this year we started a pilot program where Oregon Walks, and this is our solution to getting kids back to school safely. We partnered with Metro Park Road School District to create a corner greeters pilot program. And that program is exactly what I explained in my earlier slide around, having folks and adults who live in and around the community, who live along school routes. They basically sit out, keep eyes open. They get training from us, traffic safety training, to make sure kids are not put in harm's way as they're moving to and from school. They also receive anti-racist and bullying training to make sure, and hate incidents training to make sure they are able to identify and spot when kids are in distress and how to properly diffuse the situation if that is at all possible. I'm really, really looking forward to seeing this program not just be a pilot program. We're currently focusing in on schools in Park Rose, so Shaver, Prescott, and hopefully Park Rose Middle, due to the fact that a lot of the schools in the district lost school bus routes due to COVID. A lot of folks, lack of bus driver sign up and things like that. So really, really wanting to make sure we know our kids are going back to school, but making sure that they have a way to do it that is, on foot, because every day I do drop off with my kid here in Park Rose out at Russell Elementary. And I'll tell you, it'd be great if we could have more walking and rolling to our schools, because I see the traffic that, pulls up around our schools, and I see how folks are moving, sometimes sporadically and not paying attention. Ultimately someone's going to get hurt that way. And if you live within a certain distance of the school, we should make every opportunity possible for our kids to walk. So with this program, our programs manager will work with parents and educators to incentivize them to keep eyes on kids as they move to and from school. It's a great program to roll out, and I'm looking forward to seeing it really expanded across the region as more kiddos get to school. Next slide. And a part of that individual's roles and responsibilities will be coordinating walking school buses with students at, in the surrounding area. And this is huge because, again, a lot of school bus routes have been axed due to, budget and lack of driver signups and things like that. So really wanting to make sure kids get to school. I know, that's a burden that a lot of parents have had to undertake, myself included, over the last year and a half. in terms of making sure, kids are learning and they're at home learning and doing the thing. Well, now that they're back and hopefully, we can keep them back and keep them safe. This is an opportunity to give an example of how we can move our students to and from their residence and to school and back. Next slide. So I'm here really to answer any other questions you might have this afternoon. I know, this is something that is near and dear to all of us on this call. We are all experts in this field, but I really want to hear from you today and answer any questions you might have.
Feel free to unmute yourself to ask a question, or if you want to raise your hand or put it in the chat, we can also manage that. But if no one has a question right now, I actually have a question for you, Ashton. So for this corner greeters program, this pilot, I think a lot of questions on coordinators' minds right now is engaging volunteers. So I was wondering if you had any advice for engaging volunteers for that type of program, and specifically engaging volunteers who have experience with anti-racism work, anti-bullying work, to make that fully successful.
Absolutely. So, there's a number of ways you can do that. For me, we're drilling in on reaching out to SUN programs and Metropolitan Family Services, or MFS, and Champions after school programs, because a lot of parents utilize those programs for after school childcare for their kiddos. But we also reach out to our religious organizations that exist in these community spaces, other community-based organizations. And in some cases, I know it's not ideal, but our neighborhood associations. There's a lot of folks, a lot of seniors who do work with Oregon Walks through AARP, and they are all always connected through those conduits. We got another question in the chat. How do you find the corner greeter? So, once a corner greeter gets trained up, we have created a whole kit for them. So they will have a flag, they will have a vest, they will have some literature for the kids, like little knick-knack things like games, like traffic bingo and walking kits that will have, the things kids like: stickers, lights, flashy, reflective shoestrings, some school items in there. That's how they will get to know and see their corner greeters. And we will be incentivizing folks to do this work, 2 hours a day at most, $150.
It looks like Maria has a question.
Yep. Hey, Maria.
Hey, Ashton. I think the last time we got to connect was at a Region 1 ACT meeting where you asked me a question. The thing that you were talking about around the urgency of infrastructure investments really resonates with me. As you know, I'm in a role as a planner where I get to develop proposals for infrastructure projects, particularly sidewalk improvements and crossing improvements. How do you see the communities that you work with being instrumental in informing the work that we do at ODOT? What is a respectful, justice-oriented way of making sure community members that you work with are included in this process, where engineering often drives the locations for projects? How can we do this in a way that really keeps communities at the center?
Yeah, well, first you got to go to them. I think a lot of folks, I think I'm privileged in the way, in being able to show up in spaces that we share, Maria. And I know what the product is, I know what the engineering is all about, but, to a mom or to a parent who is working, putting in 40, 45 hours a week, taking care of kids, trying to take care of a household and maintain that, the big piece is showing up in spaces where they show up. So hitting the community-based organizations. I always fall back on the folks that I love connecting with and partnering with, right? Like, the Rosewood Initiative. They will gladly bring folks in to talk about these issues. Another big piece for me is really making the information, translatable, making sure, and for me, translatable doesn't mean just taking the wonky language that exists, but really simplifying it to the point to where, at least a 16 to 15-year-old could pick it up and understand what's happening in their community and how they can get involved. To me, those are the key ways we can engage community, is really bringing that information to them and making sure that it is on the most simplistic way, simplest way to understand it. Because, I think oftentimes in our world, we talk about these big goals and infrastructure and engineering and these very wonky terms, and it turns people off. People don't experience our wonkiness. They just know that there's a sidewalk or there's a crosswalk or some lighting for them to move to and from where they are. And I think we need to get to that place of where, get to that, maybe possibly doing a Transportation Justice Institute, where folks can come in and understand and learn what options are available for their communities and how they would like to see some of those options applied in their communities.
Thank you. I'll follow up with you separately on some other things, but thanks so much for answering that.
Absolutely. And hopefully I answered the question in the chat. So yeah, we will be incentivizing folks with $150 stipends. Full transparency, we have about $20,000 to do that work over the spring in Park Rose. So we're really looking to engage a lot of parents around this work and making sure our kids get to school. Like, we are really, really wanting to roll out a robust program.
It looks like Saskia Dressler has raised her hand. I can unmute you, I think.
Yeah, thank you. Hi, I'm Saskia Dressler. I'm with the Department of Education, and I'm leading the Everyday Matters program, so that our chronic absenteeism reduction program.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm curious, and you may have revealed this when you said that I think you live in Park Rose, but how did you choose Park Rose, and how have you been, or what collaboration or communication partnership is there with the district? And are there any, like, I'm curious to see what sort of positive impact this has on attendance, and would love to follow up with you. But if you could just give a little bit more of kind of the context for how the Park Rose partnership started and sort of what collaboration you've had with the school district.
Absolutely. Thank you for that's a great question. So we are core partners with Metro. And, when we were offered the opportunity to do corner greeters, we didn't know where we were going to go. We looked as far out as in Centennial. We looked at some places out in Portland public schools, but ultimately, Park Rose reached out to us and said, hey, we need help in making sure our kiddos get to school. And so we partnered earlier this year, and we rolled during September. I have to learn to say September when we're not in September, but September is our month-long celebration of walking, and we dubbed it September. And our very first walking event that we hosted was a walk at the Park Rose Pedal that Principal Nicole Watson over at Prescott Elementary hosted. And from there, they were so thrilled at the work that we do at Oregon Walks. They were like, well, what more could you do for our community? And so, working with Noelle Mickleberry at Metro, who does the Safe Routes to School work, we identified Park Rose, and we said, well, there's students at Shaver, that there was interest from parents at Shaver. There was interest from parents at Prescott. I'm a part of my neighborhood association here in Russell, right here in the Park Rose School District. And there was a lot of parents who were interested in the corner greeters themselves, just because, a lot of kids walk down Siskiyou at 122nd, right under the 84 pass to get to Park Rose Middle. And during that time, there was a huge camp there, and a lot of kids, didn't walk because the bus had been cut off. And it was pretty dangerous for a time there. We had a few fires that broke out, as well as some gun violence there. So I wouldn't even make my kid walk that way. So that's basically how that all came together. And we decided to make it a pilot program that will work within the Park Road School District. Hopefully, you know, the hope is to expand out more. Yes, because I know it's needed.
Yeah, I'm really interested in following up with you and the leadership at Park Rose so that we could look at how this is going to have a positive impact on attendance, because this is a really strong practice. And it was really exciting to hear the kind of community engagement that you've had with neighborhood associations and parent groups and schools and people in communities. And it's just exciting to learn about this. Thank you.
Absolutely. We got a question in the chat. It says, are we looking for additional sites? If they are within Park Rose, yes, just for now, and just for this spring. And the way we're going to do this program is we're actually going to be hiring a programs manager, and that program will fall under that individual's scope. So, you know, the hope is we roll out the program. We have a huge success in the spring. And then in the summertime, we get back to the drawing tables. We reach out to schools and other sites to see if there's more interest around the region, and we get more funding. You know, ultimately, that's where it falls under is funding. Like, you know, we were able to get enough to secure enough to start the pilot program. With more interest, I think that we can get more funding to expand it.
It looks like we have Heidi and then Megan, Ramey, who have raised their hands, and then a question from Leah.
Okay.
So lots of questions. That's good. This
is great.
Thank you, Ashton, for this. And two things. Being from an engineering background and then working on more of like some of the education side of Safe Routes to School with the walking school bus and the corner greeters. I'd be interested to hear more of your ideas about intersecting both what we would call the infrastructure and non-infrastructure sides of Safe Routes. We always try to encourage folks and community members who are so interested in getting infrastructure projects to also be thinking about the non-infrastructure stuff like the education side and the encouragement and the safety education. And sometimes that connection doesn't quite exist. People feel like if you build something, it makes it safer, and they think less about all the other things around that, including people's behavior, that we can't necessarily fix through building stuff, especially in places where that accessibility may be a long ways off from coming for them, whereas maybe behavior and safety education can play a large role to kind of fill that gap for the time being to some extent. So just a little bit of your thoughts if you have anything now. If not, we can follow up later. Just curious if you have any other kind of connections about using this as a way to kind of pull these two pieces together. And secondly, just wondering if you had, you mentioned anti-racist education for your programming and anti-bullying to kind of, get people like almost like a toolkit. I'm just wondering, we're always looking for things to add to our resources for coordinators. Just wondering if you had any kind of like physical toolkit kind of documents, or is it just like a in-person training or discussion that you have with folks?
Yeah. So those slides are provided, I believe it's Portland United Against Hate. And I can track those down and get them to you if you share your email with me. I don't mind getting those over to you at all. In terms of finding that the bridge, you're right. It's like a Venn diagram, right? It's gonna take like a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and then just finding that sweet spot right in the middle. For me, it is about having some robust programs, not just the infrastructure, because I kind of think about it like, we see a lot of, especially in our community, we see a lot of road reductions on our roads, but the road design doesn't match the road's speed, if that makes any sense. So like, take Outer Halsey, for example. They reduced it to 30 miles an hour, but it's still a drag strip. People still can fly, do up speeds of 60, 70 miles an hour down it. Until you actually get a road design and road reorganization that that meets the speed design, the posted speed limit, excuse me, I don't think you can really change it. And you're right, you know, it takes more than just putting in the infrastructure. You also have to put eyes on it. I move around the city, you know, all over across the city, and I did notice the other day, I came across, I was coming down 60th right before Gleason, and I noticed someone was struck and killed at that intersection, and it was brand new curb cuts, brand new sidewalk, marked crossing, proper lighting, on a slow road, and they still were struck and killed. You know, about your comment around changing behaviors, that's ultimately where we have to go. We have to start to change behaviors. And I think part of that means we have to go back to our toolkit in terms of traffic calming, speed enforcement through automation, because I know in our community, there's been a big push for no uniformed officers. Well, that still leaves us without any way of holding folks accountable for driving recklessly through our community. So, and I always say this, like, I'm tired of people just driving through our community as if we don't exist. That's the reality of living in East Portland. It's just a place to drive through. People don't see it as a destination, or that folks actually have families that really care deeply about the upbringing of their kids, but also making sure folks can age in place and live a comfortable, healthy life. So hopefully I answered your questions.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Looks like Megan Ramey has a question, and then we'll go to Leah's question in the chat.
Yeah, hey Ashton, can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine, Megan. How you doing today?
Good. You're definitely preaching some amazing things today, and I really appreciate it. I'm your kind of sister in crime from Hood River, Oregon. I lead the conductor. I'm the conductor for the bike, train, and walking bus, and your infrastructure woes definitely resonate with me. We have a couple pretty significant barriers that it takes a very innocent act of a child rubbing their bike handlebar grips with another child, and they'll be in oncoming traffic going, upwards of 45 miles an hour, and that's game over for them. Or not really understanding if that second lane of cars is actually going to stop before they start crossing, and they'll get hit by that second lane. So in terms of infrastructure, have you asked about demonstration projects to help bridge that gap, that translation gap you were talking about, with helping it resonate with just normal people and them experiencing it?
Yeah, so we do work out in Rockwood with Beyond Black and Play Grow Learn. They have some of those instructional courses around biking, especially for kids. And it's this program where we go out into a parking lot, we set up cones and everything, but to your point, we need an actual physical location to show folks everything. And I don't think we've made it up to that point yet where we want to get folks on dangerous roads or anything like that. But, that work is happening. I know our friends over at the Community Cycling Center are doing similar work as well. And, we really are going to have to take a closer look at this type of movement, because we have to consider, in our walking school bus, there will be kiddos that probably will ride their bikes to school and chain them there. So that's scary. Well, first of all, why is it 45 miles an hour where kids are driving to school? I'm curious about that one, Megan.
Yeah, no, I meant, sorry, the speed limit is 25, but the road is designed for 45. So cars are going 45. My question, I'm sorry, I miscommunicated it, was it's hard to wait for those $10 million bike lanes or crosswalks to get implemented, and
right.
it's hard to show regular people cross-section designs and get their like buy-in, and they don't have any time to go see those cross-sections anyway. So demonstration projects with, you know, inexpensive materials help bridge that gap. And I'm wondering if you've asked for that type of installation.
I have not, but Mary Jo Anderson over at Multnomah County, she just dropped in the chat that we have 2 traffic playgrounds in Gresham for practicing bikes and walking.
Great. Gotcha. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for that bit of information, Mary Jo. Thank you.
And then it looks like Leah has a question about how you chose locations for where corner greeters are placed.
So that process is still being worked out. We are, you know, they will be, from what we know on the routes, they will be at the beginning and at the end. Now, the pieces that we're trying to figure out is how the route will look in between. You know, again, because we're still rolling out and we haven't hired our programs manager to manage all that, we'll get there. But the idea and the hope will be to put them on a location where there isn't a whole lot of traffic going on, and where kids can meet up with them as, you know, as the walking school bus is moving along, how they can just join on in a safe location, moving in from their residence.
Does anyone else have a question currently? If not, I will continue asking questions. I had a question to, you were speaking as well to, you know, not just the physical barriers, but the, again, cultural barriers, racism and bullying. And this is a much larger topic, but just seeing if you have any advice to offer. For our safe routes to school coordinators who might see bullying or racism going on for students, you know, say in a walking school bus or in a bike train, do you have any advice for interrupting that and educating those children that might be engaging in that kind of behavior? It's a very tough question.
It is look, if we were in the South, you know, and we were coming up where I grew up, my parent, like anybody would have stepped in and slapped you in the back of the head and told you to keep moving. But we can't do that nowadays, right?
Yeah.
So, right, we have to approach it very, very delicately. So, you know, I would say by starting, like, first of all, don't put yourself in harm's way. If you see an incident where it seems to be escalating out beyond the point where you cannot intervene between 2 children, I would not put my safety at risk. That's number one. Because, you know, you never know what anybody's ability is. And I don't want someone who is not well prepared to handle conflict to put themselves in a role where they could potentially be harmed. Now, when coming across those incidents, what we always do in facilitation, hey, how's it going? What's going on? You can step in between, you diffuse, and you say, well, you know, to the individual that is, you know, doing the hate incident or bullying, you step in and you talk to that individual and you say, hey, well, this is why this is not okay. And we're going to have to talk to somebody about this, whether it's your parent or your teacher. And the whole goal is to take these incidents, report them, and we're going to have a tracking log. So we're going to report those in the log, but we're going to work with the educators and the staff at the schools to really help put some buffer between the corner greeters when they have these type of incidents. So we'll go back to the school and we'll have a counseling session with those students, but it will be tracked by us. And, you know, ultimately, I'm hoping, you know, how kids are. You know, my son's told me even at his elementary school, kids are kids. They fight. I don't know what it is about kids and fighting, but I don't want to, you know, for me, I'm a military guy. So I most likely will see something like that and be like, hey guys, cut it out. Let's break that up. But now for someone who does not feel comfortable doing that, I wouldn't resort to calling law enforcement or anything like that, but I would call the school educators and administrators to see how we diffuse that situation, because I don't want to start, you know, a program where we're directly involving law enforcement and getting kids already, you know, the whole point around this is to get kids out of a school to prison pipeline. And, you know, conflict is going to arise and happen. But we're adults, and we should be able to diffuse that and help educate our kids as to why it's not okay to do those things.
Thank you. I appreciate too that you mentioned just bringing it all around to the school and to the parents and having, you know, kind of a counseling session to prevent behaviors like that in the future. That's a great way to look at it.
Absolutely. You know, again, these, you know, they're our kids, but they're not our kids, right? And so we have to be mindful that, you know, you just can't go and start parenting somebody's child, but you can document it and report it to the proper staff. And then we can get a conversation going that will hopefully drive the conversation, you know, the behavior in a different direction.
Thank you. Yeah, and I would definitely encourage folks to look up groups in their area that can do de-escalation, anti-racism training. At Community Options, we had a great one with an organization called Allyship in Action, and they also spoke to this too. So recommend that. Heidi, it looks like you have a question.
Yeah, I was just curious if you've thought about expanding outside of Portland area.
Well, okay, so, you know, again, I'm about honesty and transparency. So we are a staff of 2, and when I hire this programs manager, we'll be a staff of 3. So, you know, as we grow, yes, the hope is to expand out of Portland. And we really focused in on East Portland and East Multnomah County just because of all the issues that exist around traffic fatalities and lack of infrastructure. And, you know, with a lot of our communities of color existing in this space, that's why we put an intentional focus on this area. But as we grow, absolutely. You know, I sit on the board of America Walks, and that's like Oregon Walks, but for America. Yeah. And you know, we talk about that. We talk about growth and what that looks like. And, you know, they always get on me about like not covering the whole state. And I'm like, well, if I had more funds and more people, we could definitely do that. Maybe we could start a chapter somewhere, you know.
Well, I'll be contacting you. Maybe we could talk a little further on this.
I would love that conversation, Heidi.
I have some ideas. So
great.
Okay. Thank you.
Absolutely.
I don't see any hands raised. I'm going to check. I think we have time for about 2 more questions if people have other questions that they'd like to bring up.
We're a small outfit, y'all. Super small, but we're mighty.
May I share something? So thank you so much, Ashton. That was really, really interesting. And yeah, would love to figure out ways to help expand or move this to other parts of the state. For everyone on the call, I also wanted to share that we're in the process of doing a power analysis of our Safe Routes to School programs throughout the state of Oregon. And so I'd like to invite you all to our hub meetings in November. We're working with NIDA YAP and the Multicultural Collaborative to have conversations about who's been involved in our Safe Routes to School efforts and who's been left out and where they all exist kind of in that spectrum of impact and influence. And we're pairing that with a lot of the data about who's taken advantage of resources and participated in statewide Safe Routes to School efforts. And we'll be putting together a priority outreach and engagement plan with to really think about which communities we want to engage with better and more intentionally. And so Ashton's the first of our sort of equity focused speakers where we're really trying to hone in on like how can we do things better as a Safe Routes to School community. So we hope that folks on the call will join those conversations and also be in touch with the Oregon Safe Routes to School team with any questions or to join these conversations that are coming up. And Leanne, will you share a little bit about some funding? Back to the infrastructure side of things.
Yeah, thank you. I wanted to talk about the grants coming up in 2022. We'll have a construction grant application as well as educational grants opening in February of 2022. We also, and those can be for, the construction can be for things like sidewalks, crossings, traffic calming, things along that line within a 1 mile radius of schools. We also have education grants that Heidi manages that can fund capacity at schools and in communities to do education and outreach work. We also have the project identification program, which is a planning service that we can provide to bring school communities together with the entities that own the roads to create a safe routes to school plan that will help guide a community in how to address barriers to walking and biking, and give you lots of ideas for what to apply for in future grant cycles. Heidi and I will run grant cycles every 2 years. So you can be thinking about the future as well. We also have a grant that is always available to apply for, called the Rapid Response Program. And that's where, like, heaven forbid, something happens to a bicyclist or a pedestrian, injury or fatality, we can provide small, quick grants for street improvements to help address that need very quickly. So we've seen things like rapid flashing beacons put up in locations, things along that line. So that's a grant you can apply for at any time, and we can run it through a fairly quick process. If heaven forbid a tragedy happens in your area. And I wanted to let folks know that I am working with, also, we don't have anything ready yet. It's kind of in an exploratory phase of a quick build program that we might be able to help folks, not quite a demonstration project, a little more permanent than that, but we're still working out the details on it. But that's something to look forward to the future for potentially having resources for some kind of a quick build program to help address some of those needs right around the schools. That's kind of like a demonstration project. I think that's all I've got. I don't have more details about that, and I'm sorry, but I wanted to just put all those plugs in people's ears.
Thank you so much, Leanne and Hannah. If there aren't any last minute burning questions, I'll go ahead and conclude with some resources and contact information. All right. This will be shared after, as usual. We record this presentation and I'll send out the slides and all of the resources presented here. But here, yeah, you can learn more about Oregon Walks at the website. There's the San Mateo County Office of Education, which can give you more information about Ruby Bridges and how to promote that. There's also our Safe Routes to School Ruby Bridges page, the Oregon Safe Routes Incentive Form, which will be open soon to get those stickers and buttons. And then coming very soon too on the website, we'll have the Ruby Bridges Be Safe, Be Seen bingo game. Awesome. It looks like there are 2 questions in the chat really quick. Oh, nope, just the Oregon Walks website. Thank you so much, Hannah. And I'll be saving this chat as well too to pass out information that's been shared here. All right. Oh yes, also please be sure to take our survey. We really do look at these responses and we use them to keep improving our webinars. So it's a very quick survey. I think it's 3 questions. So if you have a chance to take that, please do. All right, and with that, I want to thank everyone for coming. Thank you, Ashton, so much for coming and sharing your expertise and knowledge. And here's some contacts. It also looks like we have one last thing from Leanne. Did you have your hand raised?
Only by accident, but I wanted to say thank you so much to Ashton. Thank you for your time and your inspiration. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Look, I'm happy to share space with y'all today. I love being around folks when we share values and we want to get, think about the future. Our kids are our future, like literally. We heard it coming up time and time again. We didn't think about it, but now that we are in this role, in this seat of making sure we get the next generation where they need to be, I'm excited to be in this space with y'all to talk about this.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you again. Thank you everyone for coming with questions. And Yeah, look out for the email. We'll have a follow-up with all of the information, slides, and resources. And just thank you again, Ashton. Have a great day, everyone.